Resident Evil is a series renowned for its take on action horror, its likeable characters, its recognisable locations, its constantly evolving gameplay, and of course, its apex monsters. The apex monsters are different to the main villains. This is why you won't see any William Birkin, Albert Wesker, Alex Wesker or Mother Miranda in today's video. The apex monsters are instead an enemy that is difficult to defeat, doesn't need to have any personality outside of being a deadly monstrous threat to the player, and in most circumstances acts as a stalker enemy. These are the apex monsters, and how they evolve throughout each Resident Evil alongside the series itself. The Stalker enemy made its first appearance in the original Resident Evil 2. On your second playthrough of the game, you'll encounter the tall, intimidating super tyrant Mr. X. He covers the halls of the police station. If he spots you, he will walk or sometimes run towards you, attempting to punch you or grab you, dealing a high amount of damage. At certain points in the game, he can appear through crashing through a wall, and he acted as a perfect way to make your second playthrough different to the first. But in Resident Evil 3, Capcom took this premise and made the whole game around the Stalker enemy. Nemesis would become one of gaming's most iconic monsters due to the intimidation and fear brought through with his relentless, never giving up attitude, and the idea that he could appear at any time. You can defeat him, but he'll return more powerful than before. Nemesis isn't only confined to one area. Instead, he stalks Jill throughout the entirety of Raccoon City, making the openness of Resident Evil 3's game world not seem all that safe at all. Trying to fashion that same fear of Mr. X and Nemesis into the new remake of the first Resident Evil, Capcom created Lisa Trevor, a heavily mutated experiment of Umbrella's that stalks you in the caverns of the mansion. She's practically indestructible and again deals high amounts of damage, but she's very slow due to the mansion's more claustrophobic hallways, and made more easier to avoid than Mr. X and Nemesis that can chase you down. But then we get to Resident Evil 4, the game that took a new perspective to the action. It had a new setting to handle, and most importantly, its level design was more progressive, no longer working around a mansion or police station, but now you were headed through a village, then to a castle, and then onto an uncharted island. Thus, the Stalker character was also adapted to this new style. While he doesn't necessarily stalk you through the whole game, Dr. Salvador, or the Chainsaw Man, is a big threat to you near the beginning of the game. The rattling of his chainsaw as he lumbers towards you, and if he does get you, it's off with your head in one clean kill. While not the most powerful on the list, kind of adapted into just a stronger enemy, Dr. Salvador still defined that more intense action horror which Resident Evil 4 had now shifted to. Resident Evil 5 was a new step in the evolution of the action portion of the series. Being the first HD entry, RE5 went with a vibrant African setting, and its large levels complemented this new location. With this vast focus and more action orientation, there wasn't really much room for a stalker enemy anymore, and much like RE4, had its marketing set on a one-time mini-boss known as the Executioner. The Executioner appears in the game's first chapter, and much like Dr. Salvador from RE4, wears a bag over his head and carries a large melee weapon. The Executioner is slow, but is large enough to catch you with a swipe of his axe from not too far. A pretty awesome design, slightly inspired by Silent Hill's Pyramid Head, is what made the Executioner work in the marketing for Resident Evil 5. Now, it's no secret that with Resident Evil 6, Capcom wanted returns from lots of the franchise's elements that were well perceived in the past, and stick them all together. One such element was the Stalker enemy, and so in Jake and Sherry's campaign, you'll be hunted down by Ustenak, a large BOW inspired by the Nemesis of RE3. This beast chases him across the world, hunting down Jake Muller. Instead of switching weapons like the Nemesis, Ustenak just equips different attachments to his cybernetic arm. RE6 does a pretty good job in blending the action elements with the Stalker horror enemy, and Ustenak does make their campaign a fun time, just maybe having a few too many QTE portions for my tastes.
Welcome to the family, son.
Thankfully, with the next installment, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, Capcom went back to full-on out-of-your-depth puzzles, exploratory haunted houses, survival horror. With this new atmospheric change, the apex monster changed with it, going from the muscle-bound cyborg monster of Ustenak to the more chilling Jack Baker. You are trapped in this guy's house with him, and he's going to find you. Working around him to solve the game's opening puzzles was a great first act to Resident Evil 7.
You're wasting your time.
Now, I think we're all fully aware who the apex monster of RE8 is. Lady Dimitrescu has become an internet icon lately, and rightly so, as her section in Castle Dimitrescu is one of the best in Resident Evil Village. Lady Dimitrescu is a tall vampire who stalks Ethan in the castle portions of the game. Her design showcases the game's new gothic 19th century style that the game was headed, and its more universal monsters theme that it took. Her huge hat and tall figure echoes a brilliant silhouette and has her crouch through doorways. When she gets close, she'll elongate her fingernails, and just her persona, style and attitude makes her one hell of an intimidating character, despite her not being a grotesque mutated abomination like the apex monsters of the past. And those are the apex monsters and Stalker enemies of Resident Evil. Let me know in the comments below which were your favourite to fight against, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care. Adios.